Let's go ahead and stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item is our roll call. Mr. Brennan?
Honorable Mayor Ron Shaver.
Here.
Councilmember Dan Marlar.
Here.
Christine Casto.
Here.
Clint Anderson.
Here.
Lisa Northrup.
Here.
Kevin Lindell.
Here. Next, we have the approval of the August 16th minutes of our council meeting. Mr. Brennan?
Yes, Your Honor, a draft copy of the August 16th, 2016 City Council regular meeting minutes were included in your packet and are presented for your approval by resolution.
Has everybody had a chance to review or look at the minutes? Any changes, corrections? If none, I would entertain action.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution accepting the minutes from the August 16, 2016 City Council regular meeting.
Second.
I have a resolution by Christine Costeau, a second by Dan Marlar. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Next, we have possible action on the appointment of a new council member to fill the vacancy that we have in Ward 2. With the departure of Councilman Segura, we've had a empty spot on our council. We did go out and put our notice out and have received an applicant for this. So we will look to fill that space this evening. Mr. Wells?
Yeah, so council can, obviously, you instructed us to go out and get applications from people who are interested in filling the position. As you pointed out, we received one applicant from Ms. Allison Howe, who's here tonight. You can now decide how you would like to proceed. You can have her speak. You can just vote. You can ask her questions. At this point, you can decide what you want to do before you make the vote. But at some point, you will have to vote for her. You'll have to do a vote by ballot because that's what it says in the charter.
So would you like to address council since you're the only candidate?
No,
No, yeah, I think you're fine.
We'll have
We all look at John.
documents before the end of the night.
At least she's been paying attention.
So Mayor and Council, I hope you've reviewed my application, and I never knew that I would fall in love with a small town, but I do believe this is the perfect size to raise a family. And one of the reasons why it's so perfect in size is because I can actually see policy change happen quickly and see when I am engaged in the community how I can see those benefits happen like during my actual lifetime. So it's been really exciting to work with the Recreation Department on some program development and just kind of getting a little taste of how the city runs and how some of the policies are created and decided. So I hope that I can join you and continue to make good policy for our awesome town. So yeah, do you have any questions about my application or just about who I am?
No, it pretty much was pretty detailed. I was pretty impressed with it. Does anybody on council have any questions for Ms. Howe?
As much fun as it would be, to kind of make her squirm just a little bit.
Oh, yeah, you can make me squirm. Ask me something hard.
I'm just teasing. I think, I think she'll be an awesome addition to her.
So I guess at this point, we'll just go ahead and do our ballot vote.
Well, my one concern would be, in this day of political correctness, it might look like segregation if we have 3 women council members.
That's right.
3 persons on that, members on that side, and 3 males on this side.
I did have that same thought earlier, but
We're taking Allison.
Sorry, Clint.
Sorry, Clint.
We'll trade you. We can trade Dan for Christine, or you know.
Now we're up for Bart.
Bert, you sure you want to join this rowdy bunch?
Oh, definitely.
So here's the balance. Just a formality. There you go. Now, once you have them filled out, pass them down. Yep.
I was just collecting them on your way.
Oh, I could. I'll go back and put them
You
on.
don't have to fold it.
Let's be official here.
I should.
You're way closer.
Oh, my goodness. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
with that taken care of, we will swear in our new council member for Ward 2.
You're okay.
Do you have a signed copy of this?
You guys can both sign that, and I'll get others' copies signed later. She can keep that.
Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Allison Howe,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution,
that I will support the Constitution,
the laws of the United States
the laws of the United States,
and the state of Colorado,
and the state of Colorado,
the charter and the ordinances of the city of Fort Morgan,
the charter and the ordinances of the city of Fort Morgan,
and that I will faithfully perform all duties pertaining to the office of council member
and I will faithfully perform all duties pertaining to the office of city council member
of the city of Fort Morgan, Colorado, to the best of my ability.
in the city of Fort Morgan, Colorado, to the best of my ability.
Welcome.
Next, we have roll call. Mr. Brennan.
Honorable Mayor Ron Shaver.
Here.
Councilmember Dan Marlar.
Here.
Christine Casto.
Here.
Allison Howe.
Here.
Clint Anderson.
Here.
Lisa Northrup.
Here.
Kevin Lindell.
Here. Now we have a fully seated council. Next on our agenda is a presentation of possible action on the appointment of Virginia Foley to fill the vacancy for the Planning Commission for the remaining term of April 1st, 2017.
Very good. Thank you, Your Honor. We have had some openings here and there on the Planning Commission, and it's a very important commission for the city of Fort Morgan. In fact, it's the only one that's required under state law, and it's necessary for the various land use codes that we have adopted. So we're very glad that Ms. Foley has submitted her application and requested to be a part of the Planning Commission, and that has been provided to you in your packet. If there are any questions, I believe she's here tonight, and you can ask her any questions you might have. Otherwise, you can move forward with the appointment unless there's any discussion.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Foley? She did have her paperwork as part of our packet for the application.
No questions, but I'd just like to say I've had the honor of serving over several years with Virginia on different committees and stuff, and I think she is an absolute asset to our community and would be a strong proponent and asset for our planning commission.
Can you wave, Virginia?
Seeing no questions, I would entertain action by resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution accepting the appointment of Virginia Foley to the vacancy of the Planning Commission for the remainder of the term expiring April 1st, 2017.
Second?
I have a resolution by Christine Casteau and a second by Lisa Northrup. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thank you for your service on that board. Next, we have a presentation and possible action by resolution on the appointment of Elise Campbell and the reappointment of Deb Elrick and Don Oswalt to new terms for the Historic Preservation Board. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I've just recently been appointed to the Historic Board as a liaison for the council. It comes to my attention that we have some people wanting to rejoin or be reappointed to the board. Then we also have a new appointment. This will also put us one over the requirement and would put us in good standing. We're meeting this Thursday to try to keep some good things going with the Historic Board. So I would offer a resolution to appoint Elise Campbell, Deb Elrick, and Dr. Don Oswald to the Historic Preservation Board.
Second.
Second.
I have a resolution by Clint Anderson and a second by Christine Casteau. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Next, we have council acting as the local licensing authority. And this is a public hearing before the City Council of the City of Fort Morgan and acting as local licensing authority for the city to determine whether the application for a liquor license, malt, vinous, or spirituous liquors by Francine M. Varela, doing business as The Note at 207 Main Street, should be granted or denied. This hearing will be conducted pursuant to the laws of the state of Colorado and the ordinances and procedures of the City of Fort Morgan. The purpose of this hearing is to receive information, data, and testimony by any interested party in order to enable the city to make findings and reach a conclusion required to be made by state law as to whether or not the applicant should be approved or denied. One of the principal questions the council will be concerned with throughout this hearing relates to the reasonable requirements of the neighborhood for the outlet applied for and desired of the inhabitants of that neighborhood with respect to the license. Those persons who will be heard during this hearing are parties of interest who are defined by state law as being the applicant, residents of the neighborhood, and owners and managers of businesses located in the neighborhood. The council has previously set the boundaries of the neighborhood for all city liquor licensing as the entire city. Does anyone present object to the boundaries of the neighborhood? Are there any disclosures from council members?
At this time, I need to recuse myself from this liquor license.
At this time, Christine Casteau will recuse herself from this public hearing. The order of this hearing will be as follows. At the conclusion of my opening comments, the clerk will give a summary and a preliminary investigation completed with regards to the application. The applicants will present their case, meaning they will present testimony, exhibits, petition, and other materials relevant to the application. Interested parties may then testify for or against the proposed application, after which the applicants will have an opportunity for rebuttal. At the conclusion of all testimony, the council will make its decision to approve or deny this application. All testimony will be given under oath given by the city clerk. All exhibits presented during the hearing will be submitted to the city clerk to become part of the record. The clerk's official files are hereby admitted into the record for this hearing. First is the issue of legal notice. Mr. Brennan, has this been properly noticed?
Yes, Your Honor. A legal notice of the public hearing appeared in the Fort Morgan Times on August 17th and also was posted on the property itself for several weeks. I'll cover that a little bit more in the presentation of the application.
Next is the presentation of the application. Mr. Brennan?
Thank you, Your Honor. This application was received on June 28th, and all of the corresponding fees were paid. It was reviewed by the city clerk's office, the city attorney's office, and the police department, and deemed to be complete at that time. The council formally accepted the application on July 19th and set the public hearing for today. We posted a large notice on the property, and a photograph of that posting and an affidavit from the police department are included in your packet, and the legal notice appeared in the Fort Morgan Times on August 17th. The primary purpose of this hearing is, as the mayor said in his opening comments, to establish the needs and desires of the neighborhood being the entire city. The easiest way to do that is through petitions, and most liquor license applicants take that route rather than trying to get a bunch of people to come to a meeting like this and testify in support. So those were included in your packet. There were 103 total signatures on the petition submitted by Francine Varela is the applicant, and she is here tonight. 21 of those had to be ruled invalid, either because they were not residents or business owners in the city, didn't provide an address, or other reasons. These petitions are not scrutinized with the same level of precision that we do with election petitions for candidates, for example. We're just basically trying to get an idea of the level of support. So she had a total of 82 signatures from residents of the city in support. My office has not received any written or verbal comments either for or against the issuance of the license. A fingerprint check has been run on Ms. Varela and came up with no arrest record, and the property is currently being remodeled, and any approval that would be done by the council would be subject to a final inspection of the premises and adherence to all of the rules. And Ms. Varela is here if you have any questions for her.
Okay. Next, we will hear comments from the applicant, if any. Does the applicant wish to address council? Next, we'll hear public comments. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this issue? None? Seeing none, I will ask the city clerk if any oral or written comments were submitted to the clerk's office prior to this hearing.
No, they were not, Your Honor.
Are there any comments by city council?
I have a question about the process, I guess, and about the situation. I'm wondering what kind of training is involved for employees who will be handling the liquor the alcohol. What,
Come to the mic, please. Please.
For those that are watching at home.
Excuse me, Ms. Varela, we're going to need to swear you in.
Oh, okay.
If you would raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give before this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I
Thank you.
do. Okay, I will be doing that as well as my daughter-in-law. She has plenty of years of doing that, herself. So she'll also be helping me as well. And then we'll be training the girls that we hire.
okay, so you and your daughter will undergo training, and then you will
Yes.
provide that training to
Correct.
your
Yes,
employees?
sir. Yes.
Okay. Is that how it's normally done, I guess I'm wondering? Does anybody on council know, or?
It's the same
legal?
question that I had. Our police department, if I'm correct, Lieutenant Crone, that does offer or can suggest proper
Typically,
training?
we go through Department of Revenue. They've got people that are essentially specialists and deal with alcohol and so on and so forth. They put on training.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah, we put on, try and get as many of the local bars employees together as we can. Typically, it's about once a year we host a training for that and get quite a few people that do show up.
Yes, I'm aware of that. So yes, I would take that as a recommendation to do, if it comes up during this time, yeah.
It's very important to this council that any applicant that's coming in front of us understands and is firmly committed to following the regulations, specifically having to do with underage consumption, having to do with overconsumption. And so you'll find that while we might seem a little strong about it, it's because, we take our responsibility as the liquor licensing authority very seriously, and we would prefer not to ever have to see you back up here in front of
Right.
us.
Me either. Me either. Is that it, Mr. Marler?
Yeah, that's all my
Anybody
questions.
else? Anybody
Thank you.
else? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council, or? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Your Honor, I offer a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion to close by Lisa Northrup, second by Kevin Lindell. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Council action, Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Your Honor. And as has been mentioned a couple times this evening, the council's purpose of this hearing is to determine the reasonable needs and desires of the adult inhabitants of the neighborhood, which is the city of Fort Morgan. You do that based off of the evidence that has been provided today, including the application and any of the testimony that's been provided. Council should do that in an objective manner, weighing that evidence to determine whether or not that burden has been met by the applicant. If you feel that it has been met, then you should vote in favor. If you feel that that burden has not been met, then you should vote against.
With that, I would entertain a resolution from council.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution approving the application for a new tavern liquor license for Francine M. Varela, doing business as The Note at 207 Main Street.
Second.
Have a resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Clint Anderson. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries on a vote of 6-0 with Councilmember Casto having stepped down.
Good luck. Next on the agenda is a public hearing for the possible action on the request from Northeastern Colorado Housing Incorporated for a special use permit on the South State Street lot for a single-family use in the R3 zoning. This is a public hearing. Please keep public comments to the issues before the council. Each speaker is limited to comment time to 3 minutes, unless the speaker represents a group of citizens, in which event additional time may be allotted. Please respect these limitations. I reserve the right to limit public comment to any inappropriate under these guidelines and otherwise improper. I also reserve the right to limit testimony and questioning that is repetitive, cumulative, argumentative, and not pertinent to the issues, and to set a time limit on the duration of testimony if I determine it to be necessary in light of the number of people who have signed up to testify. First is the issue of the legal notice. Mr. Brennan, has this hearing been properly noticed?
Yes, Your Honor, a legal notice of this public hearing appeared in the Fort Morgan Times on August 17th.
Next is a presentation of the application.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Curtis had something personal that came up that needed his immediate attention, so I'm Mike Kirkendall, the Chief Building Official, and I'll try to handle this with Jeff's and Brent's help if I run astray. Anyway, the first one is, like you said, is for across the tracks here on South State. It's basically in behind the apartments there on Gateway and South Main Street. It's at the end of the quote-unquote developed street. The zoning is an R3, but they're proposing to have an R1 use, so it will require the council's approval for them to put an R1 single-family dwelling in an R3 zoning.
And what's R3 zoning?
That's for multifamily.
Okay.
And our previous code, when all the other houses were put in over there, would allow a cumulative zoning, so an R3 would allow R2 and an R1. The way it's written now, that R3 does not allow any other use without special permission. And all the other houses over there are technically R1 use, except for the apartment complex.
That just changed since we changed our...
In 2010, that got changed when they adopted the new land code in 2010.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Kirkendall? Seeing none. Next, we hear comments from the applicant, if any. Does the applicant wish to address council? Okay. Next, we'll hear public comments. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I will ask the city clerk if any oral or written comments were submitted to the city clerk's office prior to the hearing.
Not by my office, Your Honor.
Are there any comments by city council? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Your Honor, I would offer a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion by Christine Costeau and a second by Dan Marlar. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Council action, Mr. Myers.
So I'm going to make sure I explain it a little bit differently because we've been doing a lot of variances lately, and variances have a different legal standard than special use permits. So under a special use permit, you should evaluate the application as to its probable effect on the adjacent property and the community welfare. That's the standard. There isn't the 7 bulleted list of all of the criteria. It's just looking at how this will affect the surrounding properties and how it will affect the community. With that, also wanted to make sure it was clear the staff recommendations in the packet to make sure that it can, according to Mr. Curtis, will lessen that impact. So council has a couple of options. You can approve the special use. You can deny the special use, you can continue this if you need additional information. You can include any conditions such as those listed in the action requested in the memo.
I would entertain action.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution for conditional approval of case number 16-018 SU special use permit for single-family use in an R3 zoning as recommended by the Planning Commission on August 22nd with the following items: that the property owner meets with staff regarding detailed building plans. The building meets or exceeds all applicable codes for single-family residential use. The applicable curb, gutter, sidewalk, driveway, and roadway pavement be installed adjacent to the property as required by municipal code, and that the special use runs with the land in perpetuity.
Second.
I have a resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Christine Costeau. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries.
Christine.
Oh, my
Not
fault.
working.
Unanimously.
Blame it on the clerk.
Forcing a vote.
All good?
Yep, you got a vote.
I do. Do you want me to put the room again?
No.
Way to go, Christine.
Next on the agenda is a public hearing and possible action by resolution on a request from the Northern Colorado Housing Incorporated for a special use permit on a Vicky Street lot for a single-family use in R3 zoning. This is a public hearing, and the same rules apply as were stated and read on the previous public hearing. With that, first is the issue of the legal notice. Mr. Brennan, has this hearing been properly noticed?
Yes, Your Honor, a legal notice of this public hearing was in the Fort Morgan Times on August 17th.
Next is a presentation of the application. Mr. Kirkendall.
Yes, Your Honor, this is basically identical to the previous one, only it'll include a second part. The first part is to allow single-family residents in this area. It's means and bounds. But it's an R3 zoning, so we need to first confirm that if the council's wishes to allow single-family use in this area. And it's basically the same design, everything else around it is R1 type usage. And there is some action requests noted on the bottom that might need councils to consider when they're making their motion and acceptance of this. But basically the same, it's an R3 zoning. We need to get council to consider approval of an R1 use in an R3 zoning. And everybody else around them is single-family dwellings.
Same type of issue, just changed
Just
because
a
of
different
our
location
changing.
of the town. And this is over on the the north side of town by the Optimus Park across the street to the west side.
Any questions for Mr. Kirkendall from council? Next, we can hear comments from the applicant, if so chooses to address council. Next, we'll hear public comments. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this issue? Seeing none, I would ask the city clerk if there were any oral or written comments submitted to the clerk's office.
No, there were not, Your Honor.
Are there any questions from council or any discussion of council? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Your Honor, I would offer a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion by Christine Costello, second by Dan Marlar. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Council action, Mr. Myers.
Again, this is a special use permit similar to before. The legal standard to be applied is to determine what effect this has on the adjacent property and the community welfare as a whole. If you feel that the application will not affect the other properties significantly, you can approve. If you feel that it will be a detriment to other property or the community as a whole, you can choose to deny, or you can continue it for more information.
I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution for conditional approval of case number 16-017 SU special use permit for single-family use in an R3 zoning, as was recommended by the Planning Commission on August 22nd, with following amendments. The area is platted, fully executed, and recorded with the Morgan County Clerk and Recorder in a manner that would meet the minimum requirements for zoning that allow for single-family developments. The property owner meets with staff regarding a detailed building plan review process. This includes, but is not limited to, the owner, the contractor, and/or designer to go over required city codes regarding building, electrical, plumbing, and mechanical, and issuance of applicable permits. The building meets or exceeds all applicable codes for single-family residential use, and that the special use runs with the land in perpetuity.
Second.
I have a resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Christine Costello. Vote by roll call, please.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Next, we have a public hearing on an application from Northeastern Housing Incorporated on a minor subdivision and final plat on Vicky Street lot to subdivide it into 2 lots. Once again, this is a public hearing, and the same rules apply as the previous 2 public hearings. First is the issue of the legal notice. Mr. Brennan, has this hearing been properly noticed?
Yes, Your Honor, a legal notice of this public hearing was in the Fort Morgan Times on August 17th.
Presentation of the application, Mr. Kirkendall?
Your Honor, if I could interject briefly, since these 2 properties are the same property and we just had a public hearing, it might make sense to include any of the previous testimony and documents that were given in the last hearing to this to make sure that the council as a whole has all of the information to make this decision. So I don't know if that works for you to incorporate all the previous application from the last use.
Mr. Mayor, this one here is the same as the R3 zoning. The issue is that this was a means and bounds type of definition which doesn't identify lots. So the previous one that we accepted over on Vicky Street for the R1 use in an R3 zoning, this is now for them to, and I'll hope Jeff or whoever will hop in if I mispronounce or mislead you the wrong direction. This is now to establish legal lots for those 2 properties so that they can build 2 homes, 2 single-family dwellings in that area, since it's never has been platted when it was brought in. It was just one large chunk of land. And now we're requiring or asking for council to approve them to identify lot sizes for these 2 addresses that will be for the 2 new homes.
Great job, Mike. That was awesome. The only thing that I'd have to add is that we have various parcels like this around town where there's been conveyances by deed. And several years ago, you recall when David Callahan was here, council said to clean these up wherever possible and move them along so that we can make sure that every piece of property is platted appropriately instead of recorded by deed as is required under our subdivision regulations. So we're just cleaning things up, and Mike, you did it perfectly. Thanks.
Do we need to conduct any special requests to include the previous information from the previous?
If it's at your direction, if you want to include that, just,
Since they are tied together, I would include the previous hearings information in with this. A vote necessary on that?
No.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Kirkendall or Mr. Wells?
So just to be clear, this does not allow multifamily dwellings. We're just dividing the land into two single-family lots?
Correct.
Okay.
Because right now, it's never been established a lot. It's just one chunk of land.
Okay, so now we're saying, before we said it's a lot, now we're saying it's two lots
Yeah,
for single-family use.
yeah.
Can
We're
I-
not defining the lots.
can I correct the record? So basically, the way this property is currently zoned is R3, which does allow multifamily home. The previous hearing allowed for a single-family use. It did not change the zoning of the property in any way. This would now subdivide the property into two lots. It's still zoned R3 technically, but they could build single-family homes based off the previous hearing. Technically, they're not required to. It's our understanding that's the plan, but technically, it's not a legal requirement to do so. This would not change the zoning of the property.
So technically, they could build two duplexes.
As
One
long
on
as they
each of
fit
each
with the
property.
building code, setbacks, all those things, it could happen. That's not the way that it's been pitched, but that is technically a legal possibility.
Okay.
Now we have a lot that we can say, okay, you stay this far away, you have to have this much off-street parking. So now we have a piece of land that we can now identify, you have this much room to build this structure on. And now they have two different lots that we have this much room to build a structure on.
So to your point, what would likely limit this from being turned into multifamily housing is the off-street requirements for parking, because the lot sizes wouldn't be terribly conducive to having 4, 6, 8 spaces, depending on how dense the property was developed.
Thank you.
But the applicants are here if you want to ask them questions about their intended use, but keep in mind that it's not binding because the zoning is not changing.
Next, we can hear comments from the applicants. Do they wish to address council?
I would add that we do have a building permit for.
Can you-
My name's Sharon Helms, and the planning and zoning asked the same questions regarding what our intention was. We do have two building permits ready to go as soon as we get these lots platted in order to go forth with the construction. So unfortunately, the action couldn't be met until we went through these steps. So I just want to make sure that you're assured there are two single-family dwellings that will be placed on that. So as soon as we get this, the building permits can be issued to fulfill the requests that we have asked for. Do you have any questions? Because I think there was a comment regarding at the planning that they did not prefer to have multifamily dwellings on the property, so.
Ms. Helms, would you sign in before you leave the podium, please?
Have you seen here?
There's a little sheet.
And also, just so you know, that they have two other lots, one further down in the 900 block of Vicky and one over on Saunders on the north end of that street before 9th Avenue. The two permits are in the pending file as we speak, ready for them to pick up whenever somebody comes in and wants to pick them up. So this will be a total of 5 homes that they were working on. They have 2 ready to go. And now the other 3 will be able to move forward. Well, 1 and maybe 2 more, depending on what your decision is tonight. And we in the planning and zoning and the building department already have what they're proposing for the building plans for the buildings they're proposing to build. There's two different styles, and then there's the left and right design of each of the two different styles.
Next, we'll hear public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I would ask that the clerk if there is any oral or written comments submitted to the clerk's office.
No, Your Honor.
Are there any additional comments by council? Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Your Honor, I would offer a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion by Christine Costeau, a second by Dan Marlar. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting closed. Council action, once again, Mr. Myers.
All right, this particular action is governed by Section 20-3-70 of the Fort Morgan Municipal Code, which I don't want to read in its entirety, but it does exist. So if council has felt that the applicant has met the burdens required therein, you can move to approve the application and thereby the subdivision, or if you feel that they have not, you can deny the application. If you feel you need additional information, you can ask for a continuance of the hearing.
I would entertain action.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution of approval for case number 16-017MS, as was recommended by the Planning Commission, to create 2 lots for single-family use by special use, with the condition that the plat be revised to meet the minor subdivision plat requirements as required in Section 20-3-70C, to record with the Morgan County Clerk and Recorder.
Second.
I have a resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Christine Costeau. By roll call, please.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thank you. Next is a presentation and possible action by resolution on bids for a shade structure for our softball fields. Mr. Duke.
Good evening, everybody. This is for the purchase of shade structures for the softball fields, with $50,000 being budgeted in the 2016 Conservation Trust Fund. With this purchase, the Parks Department will provide new shade structures for a 38-foot by 28-foot seating area and 4 dugouts located at the new softball fields. Currently, there is no shade over these areas at all. An advertisement for bids was placed on the city's website on August 17th and made available at City Hall. A mandatory pre-bid meeting was held on August 22nd and attended by the 2 bidding companies. The bid opening was held on August 30th, and the following bids were received. Made in the Shade bid $10,900 for the large shade structure, $23,640 for the dugout covers, and an option of $6,900 for installation of the large shade structure, for a total of $41,530. Rocky Mountain Recreation bid $13,400 for the large shade structure, did not bid on the dugout covers, and bid $8,000 for installation of the large shade structure, for a total of $21,400, but that was not including the dugout covers on that. Therefore, staff is requesting council approval to accept the bid from Made in the Shade in the amount of $41,530 for shade structures for the softball fields, as they are $3,600 less on the large shade structure with installation, and they're also able to provide the dugout covers. Any questions, comments?
And this funding is from Conservation Trust.
Yes, Conservation Trust Fund.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Duke on these? Seeing none, I would entertain action by resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution for the approval to accept the bid from Made in the Shade in the amount of $41,530 for the shade structures for the softball fields.
Second.
I can have it down there.
I have a resolution by Christine Costello and a second by Lisa Northrup. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thanks, Stowe.
Thank you.
Next, we have a presentation and possible action on a resolution renaming the Library Museum Community Room. Ms. McCoy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the staff at the Fort Morgan Library Museum, along with the Heritage Foundation, are hoping for your consideration and approval of the renaming of the community room to be named the Howard Rollin Memorial Community Room. The reason for that is, so in October, we had a lower gallery exhibit of Howard Rollin paintings. We have a collection of his paintings that was donated to us, of over 200 of his paintings. And the exhibit was very popular within the community. So during that time, we decided to put some of those paintings up in the community room to sort of dress that room up a little bit. We had a lot of great reactions from the community about the paintings being up there. So Howard Rollin was a local artist who grew up in Morgan County, and he completed more than 700 watercolors over his lifetime, and in 1977 and 1983, those paintings were donated, some of those paintings were donated to us. And so the staff feels that this is a really great, cost-effective way to get art in the community, local art in the community, and it's been very popular. We also have the ability to switch those paintings in and out, so we can have some up for one quarter and switch them out and put a different collection up for another quarter, and then with our RFID tagging abilities, we can keep them safe and in the library museums. Do you have any questions?
Were those all the bird paintings,
Yes,
the watercolors?
yes,
That
yep.
They were pretty,
Yeah, we're very lucky to have them,
Yeah.
very proud of them.
quite an artist. Anybody have any questions of Ms. McCoy? I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution of renaming the community room in the library to the Howard Collins Memorial Community Room.
Second.
Have a resolution by Christine Costello and a second by Dan Marlar. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a presentation and possible action on a resolution supporting application for a trails planning grant for the Great Outdoors Colorado. Mr. Miller.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Great Outdoors Colorado is the one entity of lottery funds, and those dollars are distributed back to Parks and Recreation operations statewide to enhance recreation throughout our state. Most of you know I've been actively involved with them for some time in various capacities, but 2016 GOCO adopted Connect, Protect, and Inspire initiatives, and based on those initiatives have designated funds for each of those projects, specifically the Connect initiative in the form of trail planning grants. I was in Sterling a couple weeks ago at a listening tour event that they were at, and regional trail connectivity continues to come up in the Northeast region. We are always identified with Riverside Park and what's available to our residents and travelers, that we have a prime opportunity to expand regional connections. Although there's a lot of hurdles to making that happen, I believe the trail planning grant's an opportunity for us to explore and further develop what development looks like on the Twaymore side of our property, which is the north side of the park. And the grant that I am hoping to submit highlights regional connectivity as a part of that Twaymore design and plan, and what that looks like, not only for Morgan County and Brush and Wiggins connections, but greater connections than that, whether it be to the east in Logan County or the west in Weld County. So there's a memo in your packet. Here for questions if there are any, but looking for support and submittal to a trail planning grant next week.
Is there any matching funds to this grant?
Matching funds are required. I have $35,000, I believe, which is what we're using as matching funds in a capital account, originally associated and designated for a master plan of the rec department as a whole, but we have that plan and don't see that really changing, so I thought this was a good use to get a second plan in place. It's such a large property. I've interacted with GOCO a couple times in the last 10 days, and in some ways it's a shot on the dark and what can come of a 300-acre development. I mean, we've talked about bridges over the river and restrooms and parking areas off of 52, Road T. I mean, there's so many options out there. We believe this is the best way to bring in a professional and let them kind of tell us what that looks like and have a plan for the future.
Do you have any questions for?
What does the timeline look like as far as when the grants will be announced, who receives them, and then how long the planning lasts? And yeah, do you have any idea about how the timeline looks?
Grants are awarded in November for this special initiative, and based on such, we put that out for bid and secure a firm. And they'd probably spend 4 to 6 months, if not longer, on the ground. There's so much to get through out there. Doak's guys have done a fantastic job and are starting to look at options just in general as far as brush clearance is concerned, and still haven't done a whole lot, if anything, since the flood in 13. So we've got debris piles and other things that will require work on our end regardless. But the hope is to have a plan that would be complete by next year.
Thanks.
Seeing no other questions, I'll entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution supporting an application for a trails planning grant from Great Outdoors, Colorado.
Second.
I have a resolution by Christine Costeau, a second by Dan Marlar. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Next, we have a presentation and possible action on a resolution authorizing alterations to the animal shelter. Chief Crone.
Mayor and Council. This presentation is based on a request from the Fort Morgan Humane Society to make some alterations to the animal shelter, which is owned by the City of Fort Morgan. The City of Fort Morgan and the Society have a service and lease agreement for the operation of the animal shelter. Part of the agreement states that the Society shall make no alterations in or additions to the premises, the animal shelter, without written consent of the city. The Humane Society would like to make several additions, installations, replacements, and so on to the building over an extended amount of time, trying to combine all the things that they want to do for the future as well. So we're trying to get through all of these things in one presentation. They'd like to install a central air system to the back area of the animal shelter. They'd like to add an interior window between the viewing room and the lobby, extend the counter area in the lobby, replace a sink in the rear area, and add a carport to or above the exterior kennels, which is actually for shade for the animals. You'll see some documents attached that they provided me that kind of show essentially what they're wanting to do. Staff recommendations, the city staff has reviewed and discussed the request from the society and recommends that the city, or that they are allowed to make the above-mentioned alterations and/or additions to the animal shelter. I've also got a couple representatives from the Humane Society here if there's any other questions that I can't answer.
They're wanting to install a new central air conditioning system in the kennel.
It's an additional one. Right now, the central air is only for the front part, which was at one point nothing but offices. They also have, it's changed over the several years that they've had it. So there's only been a swamp cooler in the back along with some heaters, so.
Okay. Are they just replacing the sink, or is it an addition?
They're replacing the entire countertop and the sink and so on. Right now, it's just wood cupboards around the sink, and I believe they've got a more of a commercial type of stainless steel sink they're going to put in there. It's going to last much longer than, especially with all the water that goes through there when they clean out the kennels. It gets wet. It's definitely deteriorated. Needs replacing.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Crone or the representative?
Your Honor, I just have a couple of questions, and I guess I would like someone from the Humane Society to come up. There have been several concerns that I've seen personally on Facebook, you know, and so, of course, you know, if it's on Facebook, it's got to be true, right? I'm kidding. That was I guess my, and I don't know if this is necessarily the proper forum for that, but there's been some concerns about cleanliness. There's been some, you know, concerns about, there's a big issue now about microchipping in a pet that supposedly was adopted out, even though the people who owned the dog were looking for the dog. I guess my only hesitation, I'm definitely in favor of what you're trying to do here, but my concern is, should we be looking at things, I mean, like the microchipping? I mean, to me, I'm kind of surprised we're not seeing something if we don't have a chipping equipment in place. That, I guess I would just like, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So I guess I would just like to ask you to speak to the Humane Society's perspective on.
My name is Debbie Heisterman. I'm the Vice President of the Board of the Humane Society. That was a bad situation where a dog was picked up, was in our custody for over the 5 days. The chip was not found on the dog, so he was then adopted out. We relocated the dog of where we adopted it, found that the chip had slipped all the way to the side. Anyway, long story short is we have reunited them. They put a Facebook posting out of how great we were because we have done this. And she also put a GoFundMe page to raise the money for a chip reader, and they got it. And we should be receiving it within the next 2 weeks. But you're right, it's very difficult. We're on a budget, like everybody is, and we have to make the decisions whether we're feeding the dogs or whether we're getting a chip reader. We want to be able to say is, chip readers are nice, but a tag with a name and a telephone number is so much simpler for everybody to be able to look and see who owns that dog. So if we can go back to what we used to have, that would be the big thing. And we'd like to get that out. We're trying to change the reputation. It's a difficult situation. There are so many unwanted dogs, and we try to be a no-kill facility, so we do hang on to them a little bit longer. And this isn't the most pleasant job you've ever had in your life, so cleaning dog kennels is not fun. Trying to find the people to staff to do this, it's a hard task, but we're moving forward. And that's all I can say, is that we're just trying to do the best that we can with what we have, which at any given time, any of you are more than welcome to come in and pop in. It's your facility, and see how well of a job. Some people do. It's an offensive smell. I mean, even after we clean it, it's an offensive smell. There's no getting around it. So we're just trying to clean it up. We're trying to, the things like the stainless steel, instead of the wood countertops that absorb and keep that smell when a dog urinates on it, those are the types of things that we're trying to change out. And hopefully that'll keep us going in the right direction.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Chief Crone or? Seeing none, I would entertain a resolution to authorize the alterations.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution authorizing additional alterations to the animal shelter by the Fort Morgan Humane Society.
Second.
I have a resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Allison Howe. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Next, we have a presentation of possible action on a memorandum of understanding with Sarah Incorporated. Chief Crone.
So it may be my second of 5 presentations tonight, so I'll try and make it quick. The Sarah House is formed to meet the physical, emotional, and educational needs of abused and at-risk children and families. Sarah House is an accredited child advocacy center, one of the only ones within the Northeast Colorado region. And this agreement is designed to provide and promote coordination and communication among the participating agencies in order to serve the children and the community. The parties agree to follow common guidelines for investigating allegations of child abuse, to commit resources necessary to achieve our common goals, to seek to resolve any differences that might arise between or among agencies, to support the further development of the Children's Advocacy Center, and to place the welfare of the children at the center of our efforts. This has been reviewed by the city attorney and also a fiscal review. There's no monetary, nothing is exchanged. It's just an agreement that they assist us and vice versa in the overall dealing with some of the children and the family. Staff recommends that the city council authorize signing the agreement between Sarah House and the Fort Morgan Police Department.
This has been a long-standing MOU that we've had, isn't it?
That's correct. I think one of the original ones was in 2009, and it's, if not a weekly thing, we're definitely doing a meeting with them at least 2 or 3 times a month on, unfortunately, several unpleasant things, but they're such a help for what we have to do statutorily, and they put a lot of effort into it. They got some very good people there.
It's a good collaboration. Does anybody have any questions of Chief Crone? I would entertain action.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution for a memorandum of understanding with the Sarah Inc. and the Fort Morgan Police Department.
Second.
A resolution by Christine Casto and a second by Lisa Northrup. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Next, we have a presentation of possible action on an MOU for expenditure of a drug task force funds. Chief Crone.
The Fort Morgan Police Department has been a member of the Eastern Colorado Drug Task Force since its inception back in the 1990s. The task force is no longer operating, although there are still funds from grant monies and also money that the City of Fort Morgan used to put in annually to keep this task force going. The agencies throughout Northeast Colorado use this for several types of criminal investigations, purchasing equipment, various different things. It's been allowed by the grant monies and so on, that we can utilize it not just for drug task force, but for individual agencies. The MOU would authorize the chief of police to vote on requests from agencies utilizing the funds for criminal investigative purposes. And in the past, we have used these funds to purchase equipment and also reimburse for some of the drug operations that we deal with. I would recommend that we be allowed to sign the MOU so that the police department can vote on and also request from that fund.
Are these drug seizure funds?
No, it's not drug seizure funds. It was initially grant money to employ. I think at one time we had 3 different people on the drug task force for the entire region. And each agency put in a certain amount of money each year. So it's all that money, grant money that's left over, along with annual monies that were put into that. So it's not a drug seizure fund, but sometimes those operations, we get money from that, end up doing seizures. So sometimes it can pay for itself.
Anybody have any questions? If not, I would entertain action.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding for the expenditure of drug task force funds.
Second.
Have a resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Christine Casteau. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Next, we have a possible action on a Adult Protective Services Cooperative Agreement. Chief Crone.
The Fort Morgan Police Department is currently involved in agreement with the Morgan County Adult Protective Services, which is part of the County Department of Human Services. Our state statute states that each county department, law enforcement agency, district attorney's office, other agency responsible under federal laws or the laws of this state to investigate mistreatment, self-neglect, and/or exploitation of at-risk adults shall develop and implement a cooperative agreement to coordinate the investigative duties of such agencies. And that's what this MOU does. It explains who has what roles and so on and so forth. The agreement shall provide for special requests by one agency for assistance from another agency and for joint investigations, which is pretty common by statute. Department of Human Services has certain things you have to do for adult protective services, which includes law enforcement. The agreement shall further provide that each agency shall maintain the confidentiality of the information exchanged pursuant to such joint investigations. This was reviewed by the city attorney. Like I said, this is an ongoing an agreement. It just was updated a little bit, made some changes that benefited our agency just based on reporting requirements and reporting times. That's really the only change from what it was last time. And staff recommends that the council allow signing of the agreement.
Questions from council? I would entertain action.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution to for the signing an agreement between the Fort Morgan Police Department and the Morgan County Adult Protective Services.
Second.
I have a resolution by Christine Casteau and a second by Allison Howe. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Next, we have a presentation and possible action on a resolution establishing a restricted fund for payments from new developments. Mr. Wells and Ms. Kinney.
Yes, Your Honor, and Jeannie will correct me if I mess this up, and so will Jason. Essentially, we have a portion under our development agreement with CHRDC in the Sol Naciente development to finish their portion of Beaver. Because there's no development on the north side of Beaver at this time, they're required to pay us a certain amount of money that we can then use to pave that road. Since we're not in a place to pave it, what we would like to do is put this money into a restricted fund. What a restricted fund does is it prevents future councils from spending that money in the general fund. What it says is that a third party donated or provided this money for a specific purpose, and the money needs to be used for that specific purpose. So we're requesting that council authorize a restricted fund for the finance department so that we can park that money in there until we're ready to build that portion of Beaver.
And I would just add one clarification to the written resolution. We don't have the exact dollar amount. I know Brad is working with CRHDC to make sure we understand exactly what that dollar amount is, and we'll make sure that's in the resolution once it's signed.
So as the city attorney, you're suggesting we authorize something that just has a blank check?
A blank check to us, not out, yeah. We're willing to accept money at any time, typically speaking. But just for your edification, the dollar amounts, from what I understand, and Brad's not here to correct me if I'm wrong, so just take it, I guess. But the dollar amounts basically are figured out at what the engineer's estimate would be to build half of that portion of the road across their or next to their property, indexed out 2 or 3 years, maybe even up to 4 years for inflation. So they're basically giving us money today, anticipating the road will be built in the next 4 or 5 years. If we build it early, then hooray for us. We get some of that additional money that would have been set aside for the increased cost. If it takes more than that, then we're kind of looking at just absorbing that, just so you understand how this works. But that exact dollar figure, I'm not aware of what that is.
Brad will get that dollar figure before the resolution is signed.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get a dollar figure put in there. I didn't know what it was when I drafted this, so.
Okay. I'll look for it when I sign it. I would entertain action.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution establishing a restricted fund account for the receipt of funds for the future construction of Beaver Avenue.
Second.
Who was the second?
Kevin.
Didn't recognize that voice. I have a motion or a resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Kevin Lindell. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Next on the agenda is a public hearing on ordinance number 1183, adjusting wastewater discharge limitations in the city of Fort Morgan, Colorado, contained in Chapter 17, Article 7 of the Fort Morgan Municipal Code. Once again, this is a public hearing, and the previous rules apply. First off, as the issue of legal notice, Mr. Brennan, has this hearing been properly noticed?
Yes, Your Honor, a legal notice of this public hearing appeared in the Fort Morgan Times on August 29th.
Next is a presentation of the ordinance by Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, no, I'm not presenting it. It's Jason's ordinance, isn't it?
Mr. Nation.
And it's
Oh,
Mr.
Mr.
Nation.
I think it was Mr. Nation on the agenda, but.
It was, but it's not on the script.
Oh, sorry, Your Honor.
I was like,
We'll blame
whoa,
it
whoa,
on
wait a
Jason. How
second.
about that?
No.
I could present it, but Brent will do a good job.
Just quickly, we've done first reading on this. We're just doing a modification of our local limits under our wastewater permit. Just more EPA requirements that are on us. We do appreciate the flexibility. When we did the first reading, we did have to request no date of this hearing because we were waiting on the EPA to do their publication on this. They have done that. It has been in the Fort Morgan paper. We have not heard anything back from the EPA, which is no news is good news type of thing. So at this point, we're moving forward. Nothing has changed from the original first reading that was in front of you a couple of weeks ago.
Any questions for Mr. Nation or Mr. Wells?
Mr. Myers?
Mr. Myers, yeah.
Next, we'll hear public comments. Is there anybody who wish to address this issue? Seeing none, I would ask the city clerk if any oral or written comments were received by the clerk's office prior to the hearing.
No, Your Honor.
Are there any comments by council? I would just say I'm glad I'm not doing the local limits. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Your Honor, I would offer a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion by Christine Costeau and a second by Dan Marlar. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Council action? Mr. Myers.
All right, we've had a little bit of everything tonight. So the legal standard for an ordinance in this particular instance is whether or not council believes that this will be for the benefit of the community. If you feel that it will, go ahead and move forward with approving it. If you feel that it won't, you can move to deny it. That might have some implications with the EPA. It's your choice if that's what you want to do. And the other option is to continue this further if you'd like to do that.
I've dealt with the EPA on this issue, and it's not pretty. I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution approving second and final reading of ordinance number 1183, adjusting wastewater discharge limitations in the city of Fort Morgan, Colorado, contained in Chapter 17, Article 7 of the Fort Morgan Municipal Code, and authorization to publish by title only.
Second.
I have a resolution by Lisa Northrup, a second by Kevin Lindell. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Next on the agenda, we have an economic development and marketing report update. Mr. Miller and Ms. Gondek.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. I'll say a couple words while Chelsea gets set up. For the newest members on council, we had a retreat last April, and out of that conversation came our newly formed Economic Development and Marketing Department. We went live in January with this department, did a national search for our Economic Development and Marketing Specialist, which was already working for us as the best and brightest intern through DOLA, and Chelsea started in late February, early March in that capacity. We knew we had work to do, but I don't know if any of us thought that we would be as busy as we have been to date since the office has been formed. So we've continued to prioritize our efforts towards the relationship development piece. It does take us out of town quite a bit, but we're interacting with developers and capital investors, residential builders, and a variety of development avenues as traffic increases in the area. Chelsea manages the day-to-day operations of the office, and we'll highlight some of these numbers with you guys here tonight. I'll be back later for questions after she uses my picture again without my permission, but that's another conversation, so I'll turn it over to her.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So kind of what we're going to go through is why Fort Morgan's up and coming, a little bit more about our office, especially for some of our newer council members, updates on a few of our partners that we work with, and then some of our marketing opportunities and other things that we have in the works. So first off, just a few marketing things that Fort Morgan has come up and kind of been noticed on the map lately. One for being the most affordable city, which you will see is very important. And then having an impressively low number of violent crimes. Therefore, we are very, very safe. So what does economic development encompass? It encompasses a lot, as Josh said. Each of these different types of economic development as well, usually in larger municipalities, have individual departments associated with them, so small business assistance or retail development or primary job development, whereas we have an office of one and a fifth, since he has 5 departments working on all of these things. So muni-led offices specifically, we are a department of this municipality, which comes with pros and cons, one being, issues of confidentiality. We work a lot with the private sector, so it's really difficult in terms of getting stuff figured out before we bring it to you or even to the public. But some of the pros being that we like to consider ourselves a one-stop shop, especially since we own all our own utilities. We can streamline the process with development, and we're also closest to the action. So for those of you who are new, when we established this office, we also established a strategic plan for the office. And as Josh briefly mentioned, one of our goals is promoting productive relationships. The next being managing attraction, retention, and expansion of the city's economic environment. streamlining that public process, again, which we can do since we're a muni-led office, and endorsing responsible and critical development. This is just one aspect of economic development. Most people consider, when they think of economic development, they think of retail development or primary employment. And so this is kind of like a process of how it goes through our office as well as other offices within the city, and of course, including you guys. So I just want to give a few updates from our partners for Q1 and Q2. The first are all going to be from the Leeds School of Business that puts out a yearly economic outlook. And so I just wanted to pull a few things that would be pertinent to our office. So obviously, GDP and real GDP going up, always good, right? Colorado, as you can see on this, has had an immense amount of employment growth in comparison to other states, as well as the home price increasing, which may not be the best. In terms of our municipality, we looked at the things that are most pertinent to us. So manufacturing employment, obviously a big employer for us. The projections into 2016 would be that it would increase, but some of the things impacting it being those lower energy prices that we have seen. Additionally, livestock, we anticipated would go down a little, as well as crops. Exports, we're going to go down very minimally, but again, staying pretty strong in the Colorado economy. And retail sales, which I know we have noted in previous council meetings that our sales tax has declined a little. The projections were that they would decline a little, but obviously not too bad. So basically, Colorado is outperforming the nation in employment growth, but we also have falling unemployment with that, which creates labor force pressures. And there's also the issue of full employment, so if people are working to the amount that they wish to be. We also have growing population, as we all know from the strong in-migration. But some of the concerns going into this year were the cost of housing, the availability of labor because of that labor force pressure, the price of oil, those energy prices again, El Nino, which has had some really interesting weather effects. So then another one of our partners locally is the Workforce Center. And so I just wanted to pull up some of the information that they provided with us. So population-wise, this is for the entirety of Morgan County. We have actually seen a small decrease over the last 5 years, but we account for 0.5% of the state's entire population. So we're on the board. In terms of the jobs by industry in our county, again, we can see that it's pretty high up there with manufacturing, as well as healthcare and social assistance, and crops and animal production. And the average earnings by industry, we are 74% of the national average in terms of average earnings. Again, we have oil and gas extraction up there, utilities. So regional trends, regionally we're doing just a little less than the state, obviously, and the nation. Another one of our partners is the Small Business Development Corporation. And I could only get the numbers for the first quarter. We haven't gotten the second quarter in yet. But just in the first quarter alone, this partner worked with 34 clients, 15 of which are located in Fort Morgan, and then one more who plans to move into Fort Morgan. A lot of this assistance has led to loans increase, which has led to 3 new businesses, which also meant 9 new jobs, but also retaining 17 jobs and an increase in sales of about $100,000 for those businesses. OEDIT, which is the Office of Economic Development and International Trade. It is the state office of economic development, and they kind of rolled out these regional strategies in the recent years, specifically the Blueprint 2.0 initiative, which was, again, trying to utilize resources in the best manner to advance economic development. We actually applied for one of the Blueprint 2.0 initiatives, the Competitive Advantage, back in May. The governor announced who was awarded these back in July, and we received it. And those implementation strategies are going to begin now through the end of the year. And basically, we're just going to have a team of professionals come out and help do a SWOT analysis and help us bolster our strategic plan and opportunities for economic development. Sam Bailey is a regional manager of global business development with OEDIT, and we have been in continuous contact with Sam, including training exercises with our regional economic development group. And we also gained access to the Insight tool, which is basically just a property management tool. So anybody looking to locate in Colorado, anything that we can upload into that would then, again, put Fort Morgan on the map as an opportunity for location or expansion. If you can remember back to that first list of extremely long list of lots of things that economic development encompasses, tourism is one of them, especially for rural municipalities. And Colorado does phenomenally well in tourism, so we work pretty heavily with our county tourism office. And so we've gotten some funding requests from them. We're also hopefully going to have our 3rd annual oil and gas appreciation golf outing in October, working in coordination with them for that. And then they also produce a lot of marketing materials for us at no cost. So I just wanted to highlight, we have ongoing radio ads, we have multiple print ads that we work on, but I wanted to bring up some of the bigger pieces that we've gone out for this year. So OEdit did a kind of partnership with a site selection magazine for A Colorado Business Comes to Life, and we purchased an ad in that. Additionally, Colorado Real Estate Journal did an annual economic development across Colorado spotlight, and this is obviously not our ad, but that is the front page of that issue. And so just a lot of the other, the 3 remaining goals that we have within our strategic plan are the attraction, retention, expansion, streamlining the public process, and endorsing responsible and critical development. So initially I went through a lot of the things that our partners are working on. But in terms of that second goal, we just went out for RFP for securing an analytics firm. We got a ready grant that's going to help pay for that, half of that. In general, we usually have between 10 and 15 prospects that we're in communication with through our office in a month. We've also become involved with an I-76 corridor initiative, which is really trying to bring out more development along I-76 because it's the most underutilized avenue into Colorado. In terms of streamlining the public process, we're looking into a lot of those best practices, trying to work on internal policy opportunities, the business licensing with the clerk's office, hopefully getting into some more retention recognition programs, specifically in coordination with our local chamber. We're in the process of updating the website in coordination with the clerk's office, and obviously I was very heavily involved with the update of the comprehensive plan. For responsible and critical development, neither Josh or I necessarily came from an economic development background, so we spent a lot of our time making sure that we're doing things that are best practices, which includes a lot of education and professional development. This year included ICSC as it had previous years, as well as I did the IEDC basic economic development course, and both Josh and I did the small business development one. And then we have EDCC coming up in October. A lot of the responsibility of economic development includes that balancing of short and long-term goals, and some of those projects we've been working on are housing developments and the fiber to the home network design. So, the lovely photo he was referencing, which I didn't have permission for, but hey, if you have any questions, we're here to answer them.
Very distinguished.
Right. I say you have that. You have to use it if you have it.
Colorado Real Estate Journal.
Yes, this did appear in one of those marketing materials. So, any questions?
How come you didn't put your picture?
Oh, because I don't have such a professional photo, and you wouldn't recognize me because I'd have a different hair color every time.
You said it.
For myself, I got it.
Any questions? Clear as mud, right?
Well, sounds like you're off and running with the development. It's been going for a short time, and I think you guys, from my perspective, have done a pretty stellar job with getting us up and going, moving us forward, and glad to have you aboard, Chelsea. Anybody else have any comments?
I know you said you were in contact with or working with about 15 different people a month. In what areas are those people or your contacts as far as what you're working on stuff?
We've got residential, retail, commercial.
It's mostly retail and commercial.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll have more information on residential hopefully in a couple weeks. But moving.
I have a question. How do you balance the confidentiality issues and the open records stuff?
We're learning. You know, the pros and cons slide that Chelsea put up was done, a presentation done by Lone Tree, and it highlights the 4 specific EDO office operations that are utilized in the economic development world, one of which is the muni-led. The confidentiality piece for us, we've seen, you know, open records requests and such, and if there's documents and things we're working on that are publicly available, we put those out and let people know. But it's, the confidentiality piece is, I can't tell you who called me yesterday, as they're potentially bringing, you know, 200 jobs or 10 jobs, or it's not a done deal, and for their sake and how they work, there's a process. It takes a lot longer than any of us probably have the patience for, but it's one of those things that there's what's called NDAs or non-disclosure agreements that are signed at points as well. We haven't had to sign one yet, but in certain phases of developments, you're sworn to secrecy. So it's not my favorite part of the job, if you will, but it's necessary to gain the trust of and have the proper relationship to get from the start line to the finish line with these developers or investors. So I don't know if that answers your question. We're learning, but we're going to try to utilize, you know, the tools we have available to us to communicate with you as a council as negotiations come up as well.
Thank you.
Any other?
I haven't heard from IHOP yet. I know that's always a question. I haven't heard from them yet. I can't say that, or Texas Roadhouse, or Target.
Keep working.
Yeah. Well, a lot of this was outreach, and you know, I apologize to Lisa because we had kind of talked to her after her trip and said we'd probably have a chance to let her share her experiences, and we haven't had that chance, so I don't know if she has any comments on this, but the retail world is a world of its own, and we've really learned that with now what has been year 2 to ICSC. Christine joined us year 1. Lisa joined us this year. I still haven't found the words to properly explain what happens there, and it's not just because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It truly is hard to explain what this event is about, but it's all retail specific. It's a meat market. It's recruiting like you've never seen, and we're progressing, but we've got our ducks in a row, and I think we'll have better success every year.
I would just like to add that, yeah, we are learning from ICSC experience every year, but specific to that opportunity, the retail analytics firms generally help set up meetings at this event, and I know some of you have had an understanding of what this event entails. As he said, it's hard to describe, but securing a retail analytics firm will give us a better footing in attendance of that and let us fully, can't think of the right word right now, but fully grasp all the opportunities that event specifically gives our office.
It truly is, there's not even a good word for it. It is overwhelming, is probably the biggest word. You walk into this arena and there is, as far as the eye can see, there is every type of business that you could want to, developers. I mean, and you walk by some of these mass, and they make it look like real buildings. I mean, it's almost like you're walking into an office, and they're conducting, and you can walk by and watch them, and they're conducting multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar probably, deals at those tables. And, you know, it's just, I mean, you have to schedule appointments to talk to some of these developers and to some of these firms. They don't just, you know, take, you know, Joe Schmo off the street that walks in and says, ooh, I want to do that, you know, and just seeing what's out there. They build up entire restaurants. I mean, a perfect example was what's the pretzel place? Grandma's, Auntie Anne's Pretzels. They had a whole setup there for the pretzels and a whole setup for sandwiches. It was just, you know, and they're trying to garner your attention because they're looking at, you know, what their products are. But it's just, it's just fascinating. And then there's a whole builder, or I guess a retail section in there where these are places like, it was big and shiny, so it absolutely attracted my attention. There's whole sections that are set up for Christmas decorations. So if you're a shopping center, you know, or you're our park downtown, there's, I mean, huge lighted, illuminated, you know, it took up probably a spot the size of at least this entire building. And all they did was try to set people up with, you know, how to draw people in for Christmas activities or whatever activities. It's just, it is the, you know, and I'm a big walker. It is the most steps I've ever taken in a single day. I mean, you're talking 30, probably 20, 30,000 steps in a day to walk through all of the entities. And it's just, for me, it was really interesting to watch these two, though, because they walked in and what they learned the first year, they capitalized on it. They had meetings that I was not invited to, which was okay, because that went along with the whole concept of, you know, confidentiality and, you know, people, you know, making sure that the people they were talking to weren't uncomfortable. So it was an eye-opening experience to realize just, you know, we're this small fish in this gigantic ocean, you know, but, you know, these two are out there and they're taking us, they're guiding us down where we need to be going. And, you know, that was probably the best part for me, was watching, you know, our staff in action, so.
For some frame of reference, the Las Vegas Convention Center is over 3 million square feet. So, and every single square foot of it is filled with these people.
I've seen it all.
And we walked every square foot of that at least once.
I guess just to Lisa's point with the meetings, it wasn't that, you know, we didn't want Lisa to be there. It's a best practice. And part of it, to Dan's question, is there's a perception in the site selector world that council members give sales pitches to these site selectors, and these site selectors know what they want. The analytics that we're trying to gain access to tell them where they should be. It's not a question of should they be in Fort Morgan. The numbers say they should. They're managing budgets and capital investments, and we've interacted with a group that's looking at 9 states right now. Well, where will they settle? We hope here, but I mean, we're in pretty fierce competition. They don't really want to engage council till they know they're coming here. You know, they go to coffee shops and they've got their own techniques to get a pulse on what the community has to offer, and they want to formulate that opinion on their own without the mayor or council member in their ear kind of telling them you need to be in the capital of the plains. So,
We tell them that.
but yeah.
With your experience now and interacting with people and everything, how does Fort Morgan stack up as far as appeal and having the right areas, resources, whatever else and everything, where you're kind of going into competition with all this now?
We're in good shape, especially on the utility side. We were just in a land expo in Centennial 2 weeks ago, and a lot of conversation, obviously, centered around water. And, you know, they show the map on where the water goes in the state, and it's not to Denver. There's people in the metro that aren't okay with that. We have water, we have power, we have the ability to expand. Something that most fail to talk about a lot is we have land. Front Range is in a lot of ways at capacity. That I-25 corridor is tapped out, and/or land prices are so extreme it's restrictive to development at that point. So, you know, we're not going to absorb all of the growth that the state's going to see, but you know, at 2 to 4 or 5% annually for the next couple of years, I mean, it's going to expand our tax base. A comment I would make, and Chelsea kind of hit on it too, but not as I've stated it lately, is our sales tax is down, but if you look at this year over the 5-year sort of rolling average, we're still in really good shape. So the piece that she highlights in manufacturing and these other things, a lot of what I try to do when I interact with these groups is better understand their future needs, to see where we might fit in the 3, 5, 7, 10, 15-year plan, so that we can work to diversify our economy so we're not so heavily reliable on oil and gas for the future. So when there's the next boom, we'll benefit, but when there's the next bust, it's not one of those we'll really feel the pain.
In addition to the utility capacity that Josh was talking about, we also have the availability of having all of our utilities in-house, which is a huge, huge pro for us, because I don't think there's a single economic development event that we attend where working with utilities is not brought up as being an extending factor in terms of their time, which of course then continues to cost them money. And then secondly, that we are pursuing a fiber network is a huge pro for our municipality. It's becoming a huge issue, and we are being very progressive in that sense in comparison to other municipalities. So that's also another large factor, which again falls into our utilities. But
No, just saying, closing, this is very much a squeaky wheel gets the grease industry. And so we have been active. We have been out and about. Now that I'm in sort of year 2 of doing this, people know who we are. It's important. We walk into these things with Thornton, Lone Tree, Parker, Colorado Springs, and their staff know who we are. And we've relied on them for information. There may be something that doesn't work in Lone Tree that works here. There may be something that doesn't work in Parker that works here. And without those relationships and us being at these things together, we wouldn't have that. So it's worked well for us in that regards too. Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the 2017 budget calendar, which is the conclusion of our presentation for the 2017 general fund. Mr. Wells.
It's pretty exciting. We're getting down to the last
is.
run of this, and I want to thank everybody for their patience and their hard work. Jeannie's put a lot of time and effort into getting all this put together, and when it's all done, it's going to be a good budget. Very complex in how we have to put this together. And once we get the numbers in place, there's certain numbers you just can't change, or else it messes up everything. So we've got to get it right. That's why we take so much time. Anyways, we'll go ahead and begin with Human Resources and have Michael Boyer come up and talk a little bit about his budget.
Good evening. How are y'all doing? Is this on? All right.
Nelson's going, stop it.
Yeah, you shouldn't wear those earphones, right, Nelson? All right. If you can just look at my budget, just the bottom line, I would be spending $138,000, and that's, of course, with the admin allocation, which I appreciate. Jeannie, thank you very much. As far as the new items on here, I did add $5,000 for ADA compliance upgrades. In a bit, I'll talk about what my departments do, but the $5,000 there is just for what it states, if there's any upgrades to be made. We don't have any other monies in the budget necessarily, including capital improvement for those upgrades, unless it's a street project, which we automatically do, you know, a portion toward ADA. So that's a big change. I increased the employee recognition by $1,000 from $12,000. Employment expenses, an additional $2,000, and then the last kind of big change is an additional $2,000 for conferences and conventions. I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns before I speak about my departments.
What are the additional conferences that you'll be attending?
So in my department, we have 2 full-time folks. I'm at 50% right now as far as that goes. Looking for a full-timer. If anyone's interested, please call me at, just kidding. The conventions and conferences, that additional $2,000 is intended for a new hire. There is, if everything works out to plan, there are SHRM conferences, which stands for Society of Human Resources Management, HRCI, which is Human Resource Certification Institute. Those 2 would be where the extra $2,000 would go to.
Thanks.
That's a great question. All right, as far as my departments go, just take a few seconds. So I handle both, Human Resources, Risk Management, and I'm also the ADA coordinator for the city. And I think on the human resources side, we all know what that entails. We do a lot of recruiting for the city. Every month, you're getting a report with our numbers as far as our number of full-timers. Currently, we're at 140 for full-time, 24 part-time, 4 temporary. And at our max, this year, we were at 71 seasonals. So we do a lot of hiring throughout the year when we go from 0 to 71 seasonals. That includes setting benefits up for full-time, onboarding, all the training that goes into getting people set up with what we are as far as a city and an organization goes. And then we also handle the safety committee and wellness and benefits committee for the city. And then, as I mentioned, I'm also the ADA coordinator. And that's I'm learning as I go, but that would be, should take more time than I'm able to give it at the moment. But with a full-timer, maybe taking on more of the HR stuff, that should work out well. But I wanted to share with you on the risk management side just some numbers. As far as what we insure, $100 million in property, $4.5 million with mobile equipment, 12.5 in miscellaneous property. We insure 186 trucks and cars. That's 2.0 million. Fire apparatus we insure for 2.6 million. You all, as long and other commissions and boards, we take care of the professional liability insurance for the city. We take care of the airport in terms of the airport liability. We handle the employment practices liability insurance. What I'm most proud about is our workers' comp. Our EMOD, which is how they base our rates, will go down from 1.7 this year to 0.87. So essentially, we will be paying 13% less than our counterparts for workers' comp, and the whole city is engaged in trying to be a much safer place, and we have that support of the city manager. That results in about $32,000 in premium reduction when we went from our EMOD of 1.25 to 1.07 in 2016. And we'll go down additional 14.7% from this year to next year, which will be another 30,000 or so in savings. We're now part of a hefty dividend program. We anticipate here before the end of the year getting back anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 with our work in the work comp realm. And overall, we've gone down 30.4% since 2014. And then when claims happen, my department oversees those claims. So that's a little bit about HR risk management and ADA.
Where are we at with our ADA audit?
That's a really good question. So this last month in August marked 3 years since we entered into a settlement agreement with the Department of Justice. We are still working on completing that agreement. The big portion of that has taken place this summer when we went out with the consulting firm to do our transition plan. We've met twice now as an ADA committee, and we're nearing completion of that plan, which is a big part to complete in order to say we've done it. And so I hope by the end of the year to have some time with you to go over what we've accomplished. But we're not quite there yet. We had hoped to be there certainly by now, but we're getting close.
Quite an undertaking.
Yeah, it is quite an undertaking for sure. Thank you.
All right. Police Department.
Hello again, Mayor and Council. You've got kind of budget numbers that I've come up with the help from Jeannie. There's quite I guess, an increase if you look at it overall, $125,000 increase. Majority of that actually comes from salaries, wages, benefits, so on and so forth. Not uncommon. We have the largest department within the city. As you can see, just over $3.4 million projected for this for 2017. Some of the increases that we have for next year's budget, what we're looking at doing, one of the increases was in the equipment allowance. We're looking at purchasing an additional radar trailer. We got one on a grant where different agencies throughout Morgan County actually utilized the trailer. Unfortunately, it just kind of ended up falling back on us to where we've had to do most of the maintenance on it. Thing's almost 15 years old, and it's quit working several times, but it's definitely has its benefit. I think it's part of our overall public safety plan when it comes to traffic. It's definitely helped out on that. The software maintenance, there's an increase in that, and the reason is we're part of the internet, basically child pornography and the internet and so on like that. We get money each year from a federal grant that's actually ran through Colorado Springs Police Department. We're extremely active in that. Over the last several years, we've averaged about $9,000 a year in a grant, and typically it's a reimbursement grant. We normally get exactly what we need or what we are requesting. We do a majority of the work for Northeast Colorado through the regional lab in Greeley. We have one person that spends probably about, on average, 10 hours a week just doing nothing but that kind of work. So all that is an increase just to cover the budget essentially, so it's actually a reimbursement. It's not necessarily an increase. Fuel and oil, we've looked at that, and that's kind of an up and down thing. We tried to decrease that a little bit. Maintenance and general property, we increased. Our building is 30 years old this year, and we really haven't had to do a lot of work to the inside of it, but it's starting to show. We've replaced carpets in a few places over the last 15, 20 years. We're needing to do that again. Some of the cupboards in there are actually falling apart. So we're looking at trying to just keep things up and going. And it looks nice. We start looking at it real close. Definitely need some touch-up work, and that's kind of what we're looking at doing for the next few years. Increase in uniform budget. Every so often we go in cycles. We have to purchase vests, as an example. Vests cost about $800 each, and it just depends on every 5 years when they get replaced. Sometimes we just have more officers in that year, so it increased quite a bit. I think we have to replace probably 9 of them next year. Sometimes it might only be one vest. It just depends on the cycle for when those need replaced. Another increase is education and training, and this is kind of an overall thing that we're looking at for the police department. We have kind of struggled getting people hired. Out of the last 8 people that we've interviewed, we've washed out 7 of them based on backgrounds. But that sounds negative, but it's actually a good thing. We're looking at officers or potential officers that we know are not going to cause problems for the public and not cause problems for the police department. And the sooner you can identify that, especially in backgrounds, and if it's not the kind of person we're looking for, we're going to be better off. Less liability on the city. One of the things that we're looking at doing, we haven't done since 1984, is actually pay for officers to go to an academy. Ideally, what we'd like to do is hire people local. We've had several people that we've lost over the last few years that aren't local. It's not uncommon. Law enforcement's kind of a situation where a lot of people kind of want to work up in the bigger departments. What we're looking at doing is trying to hire some people locally that have an interest in law enforcement. People that have been here for generations might have families to where they're not going to want to go anywhere. They want to get in law enforcement. They can't necessarily afford to quit a job and pay another $5,000 on top of that just to go to an academy that lasts essentially about 5.5 months. So we're looking at being able to do that, hire some people locally, pay them a wage, and also pay for their academy in hopes that in the long run, 10, 15 years down the road, they're still here and not gone in 2 to 5 years. So looking at increasing that as well. I don't know exactly what to say to advocate for the department. I don't know, maybe Jeff can throw something out, but.
He has a gun, I'm not saying anything.
And a taser.
Obviously, it's kind of easy to say what our department does. It's law enforcement. It's not as difficult as trying to explain what economic development is, but police departments, people know what we do. We're here to preserve the peace and the public safety through enforcement of laws, essentially. Whether it's here, whether it's another state, law enforcement is pretty much the same. But unfortunately, law enforcement is extremely expensive, and that's just the nature of the beast. As I talked about, we have, pretty high standards, even from the very beginning. We try and keep that up with the people that we hire, and sometimes it costs money to get these people hired, the people that we want. There's expectations for training. We have minimum standards. On average, we have 40 hours per officer per year. That's a minimum. State standards, there's certain training that we have to go through. We're mandated by state statutes. And obviously, that costs money. Uniforms themselves, I just mentioned one item that cost $800. That needs to get replaced every 5 years. It's gone up an extreme amount. We have one of the fortunate things, and it's actually a selling point in hiring people, we have take-home cars. That gets expensive. There's no two ways about it. Officers are generally in that same car for 7-8 years if they stick around here. So it costs money to equip officers. There's no doubt about that. And we also have several different jobs within the police department. It's not just what you see on the street, the patrol officers. We've got investigators that we've got detective sergeant and 3 investigators. Not a lot of other agencies our size have that, but there's a lot of extra things that we do, and we've been pretty fortunate in being able to keep some experienced people around here that do that. We've got code enforcement, community resource officers, school resource officers. There's a lot of other agencies that don't have some of the things that we do, and it gets expensive. But we're also looked at, definitely within this region, as if people have questions, they come to us. Not uncommon for other agencies to come and help or request help from us. We're readily do it when it can, but that kind of looks as to what kind of people that we have in our department. So we just hope to keep that going.
Very good.
I would just like to say, I think your department and the officers that we do have protecting and patrolling our community we're very fortunate to have. I think your entire department does an exemplary job for the rhetoric that's out in the nation in our current time. So I would just say kudos to your guys and you and your guys as a department, and I'm very proud of the job that you guys do for our community. Chelsea alluded to it in her presentation. We're one of the lower crime rates, and that's strictly attributed to what you guys do. We are looked upon in northeastern Colorado area of you guys being a resource. I know your detectives and investigators are utilized by a lot of outside resources, and I commend you guys for what you do, and I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Run.
All right.
Easy enough.
Run as fast as you can.
Run.
We've got the fire department, Chief Mark Frasco.
But you can't hide.
Good evening, everyone. So with my budget, the biggest change is salaries and wages. We had one of my 4 ERTs, we call them dispatchers, was stolen away by, he changed jobs within the city. So we got rid of that position, so our salary went down. We also had budgeted from last year to hire an administrator slash fire marshal, excuse me. And I decided not to do that. I decided not to go ahead with that, figuring I could do the job myself. Gave myself 6 months to learn that. And I feel like I'm handling that, and I didn't want to go forward with that. But I would like to make the fire marshal a full-time position. He's just part-time right now, 25 hours a week. And I think it would be a benefit to the city as well as the department. He brings a lot of experience. He just retired from Thornton with 32 years fire service. And so he brings a lot of benefits to us as a department as far as his knowledge and training. So hopefully I can move that forward and bring him on as a full-time position. I upped our personal protective gear, which is our bunker gear that we wear during fires. And like the police department, everything keeps going up, and when it's associated with fire, it's just more expensive. And we typically try to replace 2 to 3 sets of gear per year. Several years ago, when I was the equipment officer, we had a large chunk of money at that time. We bought a whole bunch of them, and now we're getting to that point. They're only good for 10 years, and then they have to be replaced. So we're coming into that time frame again, so I asked for extra money there. Equipment and vehicle maintenance, I increased that, just age of vehicles, there's just more and more stuff that needs to be fixed. We increased education and training also. And, I talked with Mr. Wells about training for people who are fire department and city employees, where it could work for both of them, where we can kind of partner together and get training that works out for both of us. I'm also pushing the department to get more training, to get more specific training, and that's one of my big initiatives for the fire department, because the more training we have, the better we are equipped to support the city. That's really the big changes. You know, we do as much as we possibly can. We have 30 members and giving, a lot of time to the city, and we appreciate everything that the city and the council, the support for us. Do you have any questions for me? Just helping you.
Boast about your department.
What'd you say?
Boast about your department.
We're fortunate. I really am fortunate to have the guys that I have, and we're able to, as a volunteer department, it can be tough to get people to calls. And having the dedication that I have with my volunteer firemen, I think we do a great service for the city. It saves you guys money, and of course, we love it. We get to, drive a big red truck fast, put fire out. I love to do it, but, our department and everybody on the department loves what we do and what we do for the city and this community. It's really, it makes us feel good, and showing that we care about our town. We try to take care of our equipment so that we're not spending money excessively. That's one of those things that I try to push. Yet we did blow up an engine in one of our grass units this year, but that didn't cost you guys anything. So, but we do our best. Even though I'm asking for more money, I try to make sure what we're spending the money on is proper, not just, hey, we have an extra $5,000 here, let's spend it quick before the end of the year. I'm not that way. Even with my full-time job, I don't believe in that. I spend what I need to spend and turn the rest back in if I don't need to.
How are you doing as far as recruitment and staff and everything? You fully staffed now as far as members?
Not fully staffed. In our bylaws, we can have 35 members, and we have 30 right now. I do have 2 people that are interested. One guy's, he doesn't turn 21 for another several months, and he's been trying to come to practice and learn about it. Our staffing, it seems to be hard to recruit people, but we do get, word of mouth, friends we interact with, because we have such a diverse group. We interact with a lot of different people, and we're always trying to recruit. You don't want to push somebody into it because it's not for everybody, but we've done well. We have several members that are getting towards their 20 years and looking at retiring. So we do talk about it as a group, as an officer group, about how do we keep, recruiting members. And so far, we've been pretty consistent, and, people come in and then people leave, but we've stayed pretty consistent around the 30. It's been 6-7 years ago, I believe, that we were fully staffed, and then we went through a change. We lost quite a few people, and I think we dipped down to as low as 26. and now we're at 30, and we're hovering right there, but I expect in the next year to have a couple more. We still have room for people, but it's an ongoing thing, recruiting people.
Well, I think your department does a great service for the community. Having an all-volunteer department and our ISO rating is very impeccable. I think that's attributed to you, the previous chiefs, and the entire department. I think you guys do a admirable service for the community, as well as the chief. Frontline responders are a rare breed and a great necessity to the communities that you serve.
Thank you.
So, thank all your guys for what they do for us.
I will do that. Thank you.
Very good. Mike Kirkendall, Building Department.
Mr. Curtis.
Okay, as the chief just said, that one of his previous employees is now one of my employees. So that's kind of some of the changes in the budget. That we were able to tweak it a little better now because we know who we got and what the wages really is. So, excuse me. And then this year, we had the staff some equipment for him. So next year, now that we got that, we're going to take care of it this year. We can go down on some of our tools and equipments because we're getting that taken care of now. And then the training, that's an ongoing stuff. The state just made changes, so in order for me to continue to do electrical inspections, I have to, between 2017 and 2020, I have to come up with 24 hours of, training, so that becomes kind of expensive. So it used to be you had to do training and take a test. Now they got rid of the test. We just have to do the training. So, and then that's just for electrical. And then we have plumbing, and we have mechanical, and we have building, and so there's all these certificates that you have to keep in place. And so we're working with the new employee for him to start getting his certifications so that he can start doing plumbing and mechanical and building. And so, and anyway, that's where you'll see some of my budget stuff went down a little bit from last year, and that's just to show that some of that stuff's going to be taken care of this year, and it'll go down, and now we got a person, and we know what the wage is, and we can move forward with that. So if there's any questions about my budget, if not, I'll go into my, why I should exist, I guess. But as an department, and that, I guess that one there, I told Jeff that I'll say, well, that depends on who you talk to, whether this department should exist or not. But one of the things that I hear and I am proud of is that we're able to do inspections a lot quicker than the state can. So if this department didn't exist, the electrical and plumbing would be put out there to the state to take care of, and they handle a lot larger areas, so they're limited to the time that they could give this area. So sometimes you hear some of those guys it takes up to a week to get an inspection because it just didn't fall into the time that they were in this area. Where we normally can handle it, you call us in the morning and we can get you that same day. So that's one of the things I think that does a good for our department. And the other one is we're there to make sure that the buildings and the projects and stuff that are being done out there are done to a minimum standard of the codes that have required to be enforced by the state of Colorado and the local codes and building codes the council has adopted. And to give you guys all heads up, we're going to the 2015, working on that. So later on this year, we'll be coming back for your approval to move on to the 2015 building codes. And also we were able to get our ISO rating down because of the way that we were doing things, and when Brad took over, and we were able to get our ISO rating back down to a number 4. So that was done in February of 2015. So that helps a lot for those that depend on ISO ratings for insurance and the carriers that accept that ISO rating. And then in closing, the other one that I've heard a lot of comments made because of some of the large projects we have made, that they're just totally in awe of how quickly things can be done in Fort Morgan where other places don't handle it, as far as the permit processing to plan reviews, all that, for most time a couple months is all it takes here, where 6 months to a year it takes other places. Just get from the site plan review all through it. It just depends on how large the project is and complications, but normally once we get started, like Best Western, those groups are just like, wow, they call you and we go out 2 or 3 times a day and just help them keep moving on. And why we can't get that anywhere else, you guys should be proud of that, what you can do. So that's, and then Sol, and I say it wrong, so I apologize to the Spanish-speaking public, but the best I can say it is Sol Nicente. Hopefully that's close. But they were real impressed with all of the buildings that they had, of how quickly we could jump from one building to the other and keep all of their contractors busy and going, so to the whole project. And then just to kind of a summary, this year so far, as from January to July, we've issued 443 permits, new permits this year, which approximately about 860 hours worth of inspections. And from February to July, because we didn't start keeping track of the consulting meetings that we do, we've averaged about 150 consultant meetings from February to July so far this year. So that, and consulting means when people have questions, they want to build something, but they're not quite sure how to get there, we meet with them and explain, okay, 2x4s can't span that far. You have to go something a little bit stouter than 2x4s. So, or no, you can't put it that close to your neighbor's property, and so on and so forth. So, anyway, and then Mike Hosier, who's my second inspector, he started June 6th, so that's helped me tremendously, especially now that I've had more time to start putting into the efforts of getting the projects put together for the code adoptions. And we've already held some meetings for the plumbers to have the state come out, the head plumbing inspector Kai Lear to come out to do what's upgrades on the plumbing. We just got done the 26th of the last month to get a electrical code class out here for the electricians that need that training to keep their license. We'll do another one November 4th, which they come out here and don't, I got them talked into coming out here, and sometimes they make me teach. But that helps them so they don't have to drive as far, and people can come here, and we'll do a total of 4 of them before this time next year, so people can renew their licensing. So, any questions?
Do you get credit for your teaching?
Huh?
Do you get credit for your teaching?
No, because it's not considered part of the college curriculum.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Amanda for municipal court.
How are you?
Good. You?
Good. For the most part, my salaries and wages have changed for me because of the judge's repositioning within the court. He went from contract to a part-time employee. So there's an increase in my salaries and wages, but a decrease in my other contracted labor because his wages have been shifted. We've left our data processing fee at the $12,000 because eventually we are going to have to upgrade our Polycom, but we're holding off on that until district and county court upgrades, because then we will all run on the same system at the same time. It just made more sense that way. Janitorial fees, I've requested a reduction this go around because they never increased their fees pursuant to the last bid that was given to us. So I reduced that back down to basically what we're paying now for janitorial fees. Then I have requested an increase in education and training as well as dues and subscriptions. And again, that's because of the judge's reclassification, I guess, in his position from contract to part-time. And those are basically the only changes in my budget. You know what the court does. Most people don't want to be there. I guess the biggest change for us, 4 months ago, Intervention pulled their contract from the entire 13th Judicial District. So we had to work rather quickly to find another source of probation services, so we didn't have to discontinue any domestic violence filings into our court. Those cases are mandatory supervised probation. So I was able to contact a company that's our mom's. It's Rocky Mountain Offender Management Services, and we had them on board within 3 weeks. And so far, they've been providing great services to our court. I'm really impressed with their training and the amount of services that they can offer our offenders compared to what Intervention was able to offer. So I had a new employee start on August 16th. So far, so good. I think that's it. Oh, we deal with ACLU issues here recently. Jason and I and Dennis, I think, try to stay ahead of the game for the most part in dealing with those. They try to target municipalities, smaller municipalities, with warrants that are entered for failure to pay. So we've revamped how we do our warrant procedure. We've also revamped some of our collection procedures so that it kind of keeps us under the radar when it comes to ACLU. I actually did have to produce some records about a month ago regarding OJW and defaults that were issued on licenses for defendants who failed to appear in court. I haven't heard from them, so they must have been satisfied with how we handled those cases. Any questions?
Put another way, the ACLU lobbies the state to change the law and then goes and sues people about it.
We've become very creative in our wording for our warrants so that it's not a failure to appear warrant or a failure to pay warrant. We try to actually get the technical violations into the complaints so that it is based on a failure to comply with a court order, based on, as opposed to appearing to be just a failure to pay warrant.
Very good.
Any questions?
Hope I don't see you on a professional level for quite a while.
Yes.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. And now Jim from the streets.
Evening, Mayor and Council. On my 2017 budget, I've had some increases and some decreases. Most of my biggest increase is going to be in the salaries and wages. We're hopeful of hiring another guy for the street department, so we'll be adding one more onto our crew. Some of the other increases we got in snow removal, we went from 36,000 to 45,000. Some of that is due to the cost increases for salt, ice slicer. Those prices keep creeping up. And then also we get some sidewalks now that are within the city limits and stuff, and they're kind of in gray areas that don't really fall under the property owner, and some but fall onto the responsibility of the city. So we may end up having to assign that to some contractors to help us clear some of the sidewalks. And the other increase that I've got is in our maintenance of general property. We got our truck shed out here. Some of that 30,000 increase will help repair the wall in the backside, and hopefully we'll see what insurance helps us with the roof. And we'll get that building back up in shape. Some of the decreases that we had, of course, is in our vehicle maintenance, and that contributes a lot to being allowed to upgrade a lot of our vehicles and getting rid of some of our older equipment and stuff. That really helps in that. So that's about it for my budget. Any questions for me? Okay. Some of the reasons why we exist. Okay. The street department has a crew of 9 people right now that maintenances 52 miles of streets. Our main responsibility is street maintenance, which includes patching of potholes, failed asphalt sections, and utility cuts. On an average, we'll lay in around 250 tons of asphalt for patching these holes, and usually around 40 tons of coal patch per year. And we also crack seal the streets for preventative maintenance. We assist with chip sealing projects and the street rebuild projects. We manage the on-call concrete and the on-call asphalt for other departments as well as ourselves, and we manage the sidewalk replacement programs. We also maintain all the curb and gutters bordering our streets, which include the management of replacement and installation of ADA ramps in front of all of our street rebuilds. We do the inspections on the sidewalks and ramps to make sure they comply with ADA regulations. We also sweep all the gutter lines and stuff using 2 street sweepers that we cover the entire town. We try to get it once a week, if not every other week. Everything gets covered. We also install and maintain our own pavement markings in paint and thermoplastic. Our older streets, we stripe them in paint, and our newer streets, like Ensign, we use thermoplastic on those, which we all do in-house. We just finished painting up all the yellow curbs and double yellow lines around all the schools. We'll be working on the rest of the double yellows in the next couple of weeks and getting those finished up, and then we'll be starting on the single white striping lines, which will include all our city parking lots, the street parking, and all of our lane lines. We also install and maintain over 5,000 street signs and poles around town. We have 6 traffic lights, 4 school crossing lights, and 21 flashing school zone lights that we maintain. We're also responsible for work zone traffic control for other departments as well as ourselves. We supply all the traffic control for special events like the Fall Harvest Car Show, Glenn Miller, and Bobstock. All of our staff are Flagler certified, and 3 of our staff are currently traffic control technicians. We have 18 miles of alleyways that we maintain for smoothness and grading. We're a little bit behind on that right now, but hopefully we'll get that caught up before it gets too cold. Our street department also cleans, maintains, and repairs all the city storm sewers. We're responsible for, or we respond to every storm event, trying to keep the grates and stuff clear, and using traffic control to control the cars and stuff until the water subsides. We're on site in the early AM hours to clear snow around the schools and major and collector roadways. We also work around the clock to utilize 4 sand and plow trucks to keep the roadways, major intersections sanded and clear. We clean up after every storm event, no matter what it is, which sometimes can take days. Right now we're in the middle of picking up tree branches and cleaning basins and back to the gutter lines again. So. In the spring, we do the spring cleanup program, and in the fall, we do our leaf pickup program. Last year in spring cleanup, we hauled 93 truckloads of trash off, weighing in about 74 tons, and 350 mattresses. I wonder what business we need to get into, huh? And the last leaf pickup program, we hauled off about 186 loads of leaves. Both these programs usually take about several weeks to complete. We also have skilled operators that help other departments and projects with our equipment and all of our trucks. The street department also oversees the street mechanic, which keeps records, performs maintenance and repair on vehicles and heavy equipment for the sanitation department, police department, utility billing, ourselves, and other departments throughout the city. Bob maintains around 50 vehicles, 16 trucks, 7 pieces of heavy equipment, and numerous support equipment. And last but not least, we Got our seasonals and stuff that we employ through the summer, and they help us maintain and keep the weeds and stuff down on the city right-of-ways, which total about 10 acres. Keeps us busy.
I have a question for you. I think our city streets department does a spectacular job. We have some aging streets, and you're doing a really good job maintaining them through that difficulty. We currently have a study going on, and I'm wondering if part of the budgeting process or part of what's in here is accounting for what we may do with the results of that study. Are we anticipating in the budget to help with those aging streets based on the results that we get?
Right, yep. Once we get them results and stuff back from the study, they'll kind of give us an idea of where we need to go for rebuilds, for overlays, for chip sealing projects, and kind of give us a good direction, which way to head and what streets we need to concentrate on.
So is that,
It's not in this budget. What we're going to do when we get that overall analysis is go through and prioritize, understand what the costs are going to be, come back to council and come up with a strategic plan and understand what is it going to cost to redo these streets, what's most important, and how do we come up with the money. But right now, streets department isn't just paying for streets, they're paying for stormwater, they're paying for snow removal, all the other things that we have to do during the year, not just to build streets. And so I think it's important to understand that it costs $1 million to rebuild a mile worth of road. We do about $1 million a year in road rebuilds, and we have 52 miles of road, and the road lasts about 30 years. Math is pretty easy to put together, that it's not sustainable. So we've got to come up with an understanding of where we're at, what needs to be fixed, and have a strategic plan and direction from council on how are we going to address the problem in a way that's going to be most beneficial. Some of these areas, if we do some overlays, we could probably get 5-10 more years out of them, and that's what we need to understand. But we've had so many catastrophic failures throughout the city in recent years that we've had to, like South Main, if you look at that, that was a complete rebuild. And that's, those are the ones that cost you $750,000 to $1 million.
so that's going to be reflected in a separate budget that is not reflected in this document?
No, it's not. It's not. And in the capital budget, there is $1 million, or $750,000, and then some other projects totals about $1 million for street rebuilds again next year. So we're budgeting the same amount next year. The issue is it's a bigger problem than what we have funding to take care of, if that makes sense. And so we want to sit down and understand what council's priorities are and how we're going to set policy to make sure we're addressing the needs of the citizens as well as what council wants to do. And we can pull from other places. We can reduce what we spend in recreation, for example, and I know I'd get a look at Ms. Howe there, and put it into streets, or take it out of parks. I'm just kidding, Doak. Put into streets. But these are the policy discussions that we need to have, because we know that the current system is not sustainable, and we've got to figure out how we're going to make it work. So that's going to be a big project, I think, next year for council when we get to our retreat, and talking about how we're going to get it done. So.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, JW.
Thanks.
Doak.
It's like, well, let me reevaluate this since my budget's getting cut.
Yeah. No, we're not going to cut his budget.
Good evening again. Not a whole lot of change on my budget numbers. I did go up $4,000 on my fertilizer and chemical account. We had a significant increase in our bulk fertilizer spread this year for some reason. So that's going up a little bit. The tree maintenance, I'm raising that account $3,000 also. A lot of dead trees in the city, throughout the city this year, last year. I think a couple years ago we had that really nice fall weather. It was in the mid-upper 70s, and then a week later it was in the teens. And that really got a lot of trees. Seemed to, and we're still trying to catch up on removals on those, and a lot of trims also. That'll allow us to hire a contractor to do a lot more of our work, try to get caught up. The other increase would be $2,000 in our maintenance of equipment and vehicles account. Seems like the last couple of years we've been right at that, our budget number on that. So we're trying to increase that just a little bit. I was able to decrease a few items. Our utilities, I'm dropping $5,000. We've been pretty good shape on that the last few years. Most of our utility account is spent on water, and we've had pretty good weather the last couple of years, so we haven't had to spend a whole lot on that. Also dropped a couple $1,000s on fuel. Again, that's a rising and lowering costs. It's been going on the low end the last few years, so we're adjusting likewise on that. Hopefully it doesn't catch up to us in the next year. And uniforms, we're dropping another $1,000. We're getting everybody pretty well situated on uniforms now. So not a lot of big changes on our overall budget. So, any questions on our budget money? Okay, then I'll try to
You spoke to the tree removal.
Yes.
I had several people that asked about, and I wasn't able to answer the question. So where we have grass with trees and then the sidewalks, and then Sherman is a perfect example, where we have that section where it's grass, are those our trees? Are those their trees?
The trees inside, and usually it's according to the easement map, but usually where you have a sidewalk and then a grass area and then the street, anything in between that sidewalk and the street, most of the time are city trees. That's on city right-of-ways, so those are city trees. If a tree in that area dies, we will remove it if it needs trimmed or anything along that way. Also, we'll replace trees in that area too. Or if somebody wants a tree in that parking area in front of their house, if they call us, we're more than happy to plant a tree for them. That's another reason for the increase in the budget line.
So if somebody has a concern, or specifically they believe that a tree should be removed, that whole section of Sherman where the microburst process went through, there were several people that had reached out to me and asked what do they do about having some of that either trimmed, because they're concerned that it's going to come down the next time we have a major wind event. Do they just reach out to parks? Do they?
Yes, they can call us at the Parks Department, and we'll try to. We get a lot of calls, especially today. We had a few after the wind over the weekend, but and a lot of tree branches down, which with the street department's help, we go out and help them pick up branches too, so we have the equipment to do that. But yes, no, they can call us, and we'll look at the tree. We decide that if a tree is over 60% dead, we'll remove it. That's how we try to decide if we remove a tree or if we just trim the dead out. So we'll go and look at trees, and there are other issues too that we'll remove a tree for them. However, we won't go remove trees just because they don't like raking leaves in the winter or along that line. We do get calls for that. But if it's a healthy tree, we try to keep it there. But we will. That's part of the increase in the salary in that line item is that there are a lot of dead trees out there, and we're behind on getting them caught up with. Sure. All right. That was part of my what we do, what the Parks Department does. I'll give you a lot of numbers here real quick. I know it's been a long night, so I'll try to go fast. I'll talk really quick. But we feel that we're the most diverse department in the city. We have a lot of different responsibilities. Our staff is responsible for maintaining 10 city parks and the cemetery grounds, containing approximately 100 acres of irrigated turf, approximately 600 acres of open space, and 3.7 miles of walking trails. This includes all mowing, irrigation repair, and installation, a complete fertilization program, maintaining over 40 flower and shrub beds, management of over 5,000 city-owned trees, including planting, trimming, and removal, applying herbicide to all parks and open space areas, maintaining all aspects of swimming pool operation, maintaining 7 softball baseball fields, 8 soccer fields, 1 inline hockey rink, 3 tennis courts, and 1 pickleball court, which is new, 6 basketball courts, 2 volleyball courts, 1 BMX track, 1 36-hole disc golf course, 4 horseshoe pits, 1 skate park, 6 bathrooms, 7 playgrounds, 12 picnic shelters, as well as the maintenance of turf and sprinkler systems at the museum warehouse property, senior citizen center, our park shop, and the police station property. Our park cemetery staff also delivers and sets up the showmobile, picnic tables, and the portable restroom for many special events during the year, as well as maintenance of the new band shell in City Park. Staff also performs snow removal at 20 different locations. We have our own building maintenance, construction staff. We assist the street department with spring cleanup and perform all of our own vehicle maintenance. And then we also have our cemetery staff has had 89 burial columbarium services so far this year, which is on a record pace for number of services. We've raised over 60 sunken graves there this year, in addition to fixing numerous mainline irrigation leaks and their normal everyday maintenance. We feel the parks and cemetery departments greatly improve the quality of life for the citizens of Fort Morgan and the surrounding area. Any questions, comments?
What do you do in your spare time?
We don't have much spare time. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Chandra.
Good evening again. There aren't too many changes for my budget this year. There are a couple increases and some cuts. So increased just a little bit on our book budget, and the book budget includes print books. It also includes audio books, DVDs. We use one primary vendor, but some books are not always available through that vendor, or we can find them through other vendors at a lesser cost. So the other thing you'll see too, changes in the magazine budget. We decreased that a little bit because we found that we had some magazines that were just not circulating anymore, so decided that it wasn't a necessary cost to have that, and we were able to cut that a little. We're able to cut our software budget a little bit. Mostly right now what we're going to be spending in software maintenance will be through 3M and Biblioteca for our new sorting machine, our new self-checks, and those newer items that we've purchased, the staff pads, the RFID tags, the security gates. And we also are going to be getting a different e-book service that will offer a lot more titles to our patrons through a consortium that we will be using that utilizes a lot of different libraries in the state of Colorado, called Overdrive. And then there's a slight increase to our office supplies budget for, obviously for office supplies, but also because our maintenance agreement that we have with the company that supplies our copier has increased just slightly. We did cut a little bit to our fuel line item because we don't really need that much. The only times we really use fuel is for going to Denver to get framing for museum exhibits or for education and training when we go to do that. And then you'll see a slight increase in the general maintenance property line item because we desperately need new chairs and tables in our community room. A lot of them are scratched up. There's stains that are not stains that can be removed. But planning to purchase tables and chairs that are easily cleaned, still ergonomically sufficient, and something that we can keep for a long time. Any questions about the budget? No. So a few bullet points about library museum, starting with the library. So obviously we're a place for recreational and educational reading through audiobooks, print materials, magazines, lots of different avenues. But we also serve as a gathering place for the community. That's been a shift in libraries in the last few years. We partner with other Colorado libraries for interlibrary loans so that people can find what they're looking for even if we don't have it. We offer free educational programming for people of all ages. One of the most heavily utilized places in the library is our free Wi-Fi, or the access to our free Wi-Fi through, or the use of our computers. So people come in, use the computers there for job applications, for resumes, connecting with family members who may live in distant places. We also have the community room. It serves as a meeting place for folks who need a place to have a conference or those types of events. And then we provide free access to a wide range of information. So if you're coming, when you come to the library, we're there to answer questions, to help you find any information that you might need. And if we don't know the answer, then we can find somebody who does. And then one of the most important things we do too is that we fill the learning void during the summer for students. That's a big part of what we do, especially in the summertime. In the museum, we provide a source of very valuable local history. We can answer almost any question about local history that one might have. We have the research room that houses all the issues of the Fort Morgan Times since the beginning. And some of them we have access to digitized articles and newspapers. We help connect people with the past. We have a lot of people who come from out of town or out of state who are wanting information about their past family members or even their own pasts that they can look in the museum for. We have access to obituaries, historical photographs of the county, and we preserve historical artifacts and oral histories of Morgan County. So those are some of the things that we do. Questions?
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
We're excited about Override.
So that concludes our presentations for tonight. We will have a few more the next meeting, and then we'll do the final cleanup on the 4th and presentation of the budget for first reading for adoption on the second meeting in October. So we're proceeding well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have public comment or audience participation. Seeing none, reports from officials and staff.
Nothing really to report. Does anybody else have anything to bring up? Driving. Oh, car show's coming up. Yes. Everybody should go to the car show.
Third week in September.
Yes.
What's the work that's going on Main and Riverview?
Well, that's a great question. Well, somebody was putting some underground lines in and didn't follow the instructions that they were given and went right through the middle of our stormwater line. And so they're having to fix the stormwater line by putting in a manhole and figuring out how to make sure we don't have problems with that storm line in the future. So they're digging that up and fixing what I believe is CenturyLink. Would that be the name of the company that hit that line? Thank you. Yes.
How long is that anticipated to be going on?
Until we get it done, but it shouldn't be too long. Yeah, not too long.
Okay, thank you.
A few more days. That part of the process was we know it's a busy time of the year, busy area. We've got to get it done as fast as possible. So we appreciate everybody's patience.
Okay, bids, meetings, and announcements. Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Under meetings, most of the city boards and commissions will be meeting between now and the next council meeting. I'll try to run through these quickly. September 8th, 4 p.m., Historic Preservation Board at City Hall. September 12th at 4:30, Planning Commission at City Hall. September 12th at 1, the Senior Center Advisory Board at Senior Center. September 14th at 5:30 p.m., the Golf Course Board at Quail Dunes. September 14th at noon, the Airport Advisory Board meeting at the airport. September 19th at 4:30 p.m., the Library Board at the Museum Community Room. And the next City Council regular meeting will be September 20th at 6 p.m. here at City Hall. There are several bids open right now. Irrigation controllers for Signature Control Systems Constellation Series until 2:45 p.m. on September 7th. 2 well houses or irrigation well structure covers until 4 p.m. on September 12th. 2016 wastewater collection system projects until 4 p.m. on September 12th. Analytics firm / consultant for economic development and marketing until 4 p.m. on September 20th. And Quail Dunes Golf Course supplemental irrigation supply project until 4:30 p.m. on September 22nd. And the only news release recently of note was about the traffic at Main and Riverview. That is scheduled for the remainder of this week. Depends how the work goes. So that's all I've got.
And finally, we have a executive session for a conference with the city attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions under CRS Section 2-4-6-402B, 4B, and for the following additional details provided for identification purposes, Riverview Conference. I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Your Honor, I would offer a motion to go into executive session.
I have a motion by Christine Casteau, second by Lisa Northrup. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We will be tied to executive session.